I'm Zoe Delahunty-Light, and I've played dozens of hours of God of War Ragnarok, and there's a ton of stuff you need to know to get the most out of Kratos and Atreus' adventure. And because I'm as blunt as Kratos, quite happily, I'm just going to jump straight into it. So here are 15 things I wish I had known before starting God of War Ragnarok. Kratos is big and bulky, and therefore isn't particularly fast when it comes to evading. So make sure you can actually get out of the way of a wide-ranging attack with an evade, as quite a few heavy attacks from mini-bosses can't be dodged simply by evading. As Kratos is a bit on the lumbering side, sorry Kratos, I personally always go for blocking using a shield because you have a chance of getting a parry, or if you're using the shield that's better for blocking, you can soak up some damage. Either way, an evade followed by a parry will leave you wide open to damage if your foe is already doing their attack animation, so choose between the two carefully. This is a cheese for sure, but I really don't care because there comes a time when you just need to hold onto that sliver of health you have for dear life, for life's sake. So, when you unlock the relic abilities in God of War Ragnarok, you can use L1 plus circle to activate the relic, which starts a quick animation which, as well as triggering your chosen buff, negates any damage coming Kratos' way. You've got to time it right at the point of impact, but it saved me from death quite a few times. See all that litter left around fighting arenas that are coincidentally disguised as environments? Kratos doesn't need to aim those hunks of stone or logs at enemies. When you see them scattered around, just pick them up and the game will do the rest for you. Just make sure that Kratos is facing the enemy you actually want to hit with a log or stone, as they do have to be in your eye line for the auto-aim to work. Look, there's no sense in having one weapon feeling neglected, and also no sense in letting runic attacks go to waste. I think we can all agree on that. Kratos switches between his weapons mighty fast, so you can switch to your less favoured blade, trigger its powerful runic attack, and then just switch right back to the other weapon, and keep doing this until everything, apart from you, hopefully, is dead. Don't stop moving. Enemies can and will come at you from behind, don't laugh, and while you're moving, remember to use the grapple Kratos has, as you can pair it with an attack from above and land on enemies. Once again, like with the stones and logs, the game will auto-aim Kratos towards the enemy you're falling towards when you're doing an attack from above. Just make sure that you actually stand a chance of hitting them by aiming for them, because the auto-aim will not pull you a massive distance towards your enemies. Parrying is so almost overpowered in God of War, and I utterly devoted myself to it, so let me tell you how to stand the best chance of doing a successful parry. Wait until almost the last possible second to bring up Kratos' shield, or your foe is going to get a free attack. Either when they swing at your shield, which has been up for too long and so is blown to the side and leaves Kratos open to damage, or because you won't bring Kratos' shield up quickly enough. A good rule of thumb is to memorize attack animations, then bring up your shield when they're roughly in the middle of that animation, or, for faster attacks, time the parry so that the shield is brought up the beat after the enemy's pause ends when they're winding up for an attack. Generally, with parrying, the best way to get good at it is just to practice, so I'd recommend going to an area of either Svartalfheim or Midgard and just finding some low-level enemies and just practicing until you have the parry down. Right from the very beginning of God of War Ragnarok, you'll see these golden circles around enemies, which look exactly like the finishing move red circles, but they're gold. These are moments when you can do an extra powerful attack because the foe in question is stunned enough. So, leg it towards the enemy, have a split-second moment of silence as you bring Leviathan or the Blades of Chaos down on them, and chop off a chunk of that health bar. Now, I know this is going to divide people, but hear me out. My preferred weapon in Ragnarok is Leviathan, but I will acknowledge that Blades of Chaos are really useful for specific moments. Namely, when you have multiple enemies surrounding you, or enemies that like moving around a lot, like the Dreki, who require a bit more reach to get to. As a rule, use fire and therefore the Blades of Chaos against frosty enemies, and the Frosty Leviathan against fiery enemies. Sponsored by Wendy's. Not really, it's a joke. I'd recommend not using lock-on when you find yourself in a big fight with multiple enemies. I find that it unexpectedly switches between foes when I don't want it to, and generally makes the whole fight become a lot messier. For me, and my blood. If you're following my earlier tip, you should already be moving around a ton anyway, so locking onto enemies shouldn't really be essential. Without lock-on, you have control over where you're facing and where your attacks are actually going. However, when it comes to bosses and mini-bosses, locking on is best because you only have one thing to concentrate on, and therefore kill. Do not go where the game wants you to go. It's a classic, obvious tip that works for almost every single video game out there, and it definitely applies to God of War Ragnarok. Chests are hidden all around the world, and as Ragnarok is super linear in the main story areas, it's really obvious where you should go, so thus it's also really obvious where the game doesn't want you to go. Explore, and I promise you 100% that you will find extra chests and such off the beaten path. Our legal team probably won't like that I just said 100% guarantee, but you know what? What's done is done. Trust me. If you're running into trouble with a boss that seems stuck, like I did when I was playing Ragnarok, try going up to it and pressing R3. Sometimes the red finisher button didn't appear for me when I was playing Ragnarok, so just bear that in mind if you find a boss that's oddly unwilling to crush you into pulp. If you're unlocking a Nornir chest, or are trying to, you've got to play the usual game of I Spy. The runes won't be too far away from the chest, so don't go wandering around to the extent that you put loads of distance between yourself and the chest. They are there, but damn, they are really well hidden. Though I figured out that there's one way to unearth these elusive runes. Number 1, make sure to smash any barrels nearby to make sure none of them are hidden, and number 2, look at the area from all angles. The most reliable of one I've found to be looking back on the way I've come when I get a little bit of distance from the chest. Keep an eye out for areas that are deliberately obscured and high up, especially areas where they're only blocked from a certain angle. For those of you that have butterfingers like me, you can extend the amount of time you're given before the timer on the rune gong runs out, which I found especially useful. As someone with a not so great sense of direction, I'd like to assure you that your compass isn't essential in God of War Ragnarok. To be honest, Sony Santa Monica's game is so linear in the main story areas that you don't actually need your compass on all the time, as the game will naturally lead you to the main story beats. When you're doing favours, you can just keep checking your map to make sure you're heading in the right direction. Not having the enemy health bars visible either makes the game a ton more immersive, so I'd honestly recommend getting rid of that too, as well as the compass, because I'm such a gaming purist like that. Shield Bash is a skill you're taught weirdly late on in the game, so I'm just going to tell you how to do it now. First off, you can tell when you need to break someone's block when 2 blue rings appear in front of them. Double tap L1 to Shield Bash, which will break the block and stun your foe. Using the Shield Bash also stuns foes regardless of whether they're blocking or not, so have at it. This one is a tip for those of you who are about 12-ish hours into the game, so if that's not you, come back later please, stop watching here, it's been swell having you and have a good life. Anyway, for those of you that remain, hi. This relates to using your Spartan rage meter for either rage attacks or healing yourself using Valor. Once again, yes, this is slightly dairy in flavour, but you can change right in the middle of the fight what your rage meter actually goes towards. It's up to you whether you want a Rage of Sparta damage buff, or just a burst of Valor which will heal you. So, if you feel the urge to, don't be afraid to switch it up right in the middle of a fight if you're low on health, or are just bursting with vigour and need to end a fight sharpish. And those are all of the useful tips I could think of for those of you just starting off in God of War Ragnarok. Are you playing the game? And if so, do you have any other tips folks might find helpful? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, thanks very much, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Eurogamer as we have a new video out almost every single day. Now, I'm going to go and take my real Leviathan axe into the woods for a God of War photo shoot, not joking, so I'll see you lot next time.